Savvy Business Radio, drawing out the best from our guests with our host, Christina Nichman.
Our guest today is Damion Lupo. Born with an entrepreneurial spirit, Damion started his first business at age 11. Today, Damion and I discuss how to take hold of your finances and how to build control and mindfulness with your money and in your life. Find out more about Damion and his business at takecontrolfinancial.com or DamionLupo.com. Hi, Damion. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio. How are you today?
Hi, Christina. I'm doing great.
I'm so happy to have you here. I don't know if you know, but one of the top things we get asked on is finance, wealth, and money, and in particular sales, because to have a good functioning business that is growing, you need to continually bring in cash flow. And you've helped people not only with cash flow in their business and building their business, but you've helped everyday citizens just build their wealth portfolio, because it's, whether you have a job or a business, you have to build that portfolio so that when it comes time to retirement or you're going to leave a job, that you have something, a nest egg of sorts. So you're going to help people with that. You're also a black belt in your sensei. So you actually teach martial arts. So it'll be interesting to pull that in here a little bit about that. Share with our audience a little bit about your background, how you came to working in finance as well as being a black belt.
The finance and the black belt sort of happened at the same time. And in 1999, 2000, I went out and I found the creative real estate space. And this was after I sold some insurance and worked at a retail bank. And I went to a seminar after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I got really excited because there was no limit. And it's always funny when I say this, but I thought, hey, you know what? I want to be Donald Trump. At the time, that was about real estate. It didn't, it was a little different now.
Yeah.
And I was laughing about it because I remembered this and reading his books. And so I went out there and I started doing some real estate stuff. And at the same time, I started studying Aikido, which is the art of peace. And
is that what that mean? Okay.
Yeah, it's the loving protection of all things. So it's a really interesting thing. Most martial arts are focused on hurting people. Ultimately, it's punching, kicking, biting, slapping, whatever. Yeah. And with Aikido, it's about blending, redirecting energy, and protecting the attacker as much as you're protecting yourself. So it's a different mindset. It's really not. It is peace. You're really helping to bring peace into any environment, any situation, and so that really resonated with me. It probably helped me from not dying in the process, but I almost did die anyway in the process of building up $20 million in the real estate world. So it was a good balance. I probably needed more Aikido and less real estate. But ultimately, I went through this process of learning both.
Wow, that's amazing. And for me, is Aikido the same as the Japanese sword fighting, or is it totally different?
It's different. Japanese sword fighting is called Shinkendo, and so we train with that too. They kind of go hand in hand. But Aikido is really meant to be something you can use to defend yourself against swords or anything else. Yeah, I mean, even somebody that pulls a gun on you, we practice that type of space where you can anticipate what's going to happen. It's almost, it's kind of funny because you feel like it's a movie like The Matrix because you move before the bullet. But the truth is, when you're present enough, and this has to do with business too, when you're present enough, you can sense what's going on because you start tuning into the environment a lot better than if you're just scattered in your squirrel brain in it.
Wow, that's amazing to me because, I watched some of the Aikido online. I thought, well, it looks like he's just blocking a lot. Does this really help you in real life? And from what I'm hearing here, it does, because it helps you protect them and you and deflect and kind of maybe de-escalate the situation.
That's exactly right. It really is de-escalating. It's also, it's about taking conflict out of your life. It's about when you're in conflict, whether somebody's yelling at you. I do Aikido on the phone all the time, or when I'm interacting with people. Yeah, it's a conflict de-escalation where you're grounding things. And when people come at you, one of the things I learned when I was in Japan in a couple months ago is doing some training over there. And I realized there's this lethal kindness approach where you can actually get into a space where your kindness becomes lethal and there's nothing that can be used to defend against the kindness. So it's a really powerful approach if you start thinking about it in terms of business or life. How kind could you be? And what would that do for you?
I love that you just brought this up. A number of years ago, I worked for years in the collection field. So I would be the one that company would hire to help bring in their cash flow. And people generally hate doing the job. They're like, I have to call people and ask for money. But I thought I will kill them with kindness. I will be the nicest collector they've ever talked to, and they can't wait to give me their money. So that's what I would tell myself all the time. And there was one woman in particular who had such a nasty attitude. She was so mean and grovelly. And I would just be laughing. How are you today, Cindy? Tell me, how was your weekend? And she was like, "Arr." And so one day I just kept out. It was Easter. I was like, "Oh, what are you doing for Easter? You taking the family to church? Are you going out for?" And I kept going on and on. And one day she just burst out laughing. She's like, "Okay, how can I help you?" And then from that day on, we were best friends. But it was kind of like I finally totally disarmed her nastiness, and she was willing to come to the table and let's just do this.
Well, we're all used to being attacked, and we are subject to everybody's agenda, whether it's Facebook's agenda or it's our boss's agenda if we have a job or whatever. It's our email inbox is a series of people's agenda that's attacking us all the time. And so we have to start moving into a place of consciousness and start redirecting that stuff. And that takes a level of awareness. And it's, one of the things that I talk about and I like to share is the whole idea of the law of attraction, which I think is a bunch of BS. And the reason I say that, people are like, wait, I've watched The Secret. What are you saying? You're wrecking my life. That's my entire plan. I'm going to attract a bag of money. It's going to fall from the sky. This is the most amazing thing, but you just screwed my approach up. Yeah. So it's actually the law of awareness. And if you realize that all of a sudden that person that you were trying to attract or that deal that you're trying to do or the job you're trying to get to, it's not you attracting it, it's right in front of you. It's you being present enough to see it. And that's the big difference. You can't will yourself to have a bag of money fall from the sky and hit you in the head, but there's an opportunity right in front of you where you can go take it if you're willing to pay the price.
Thank you for bringing this up. This is awesome. I've heard of the law of attraction. When I first saw the movie, I said, this sounds a bunch of hooey to me. But I have seen in my life where things have happened that are inexplainable. And one of them being apartments. When I've needed a really nice apartment in a good area, I will go in there and come in there with the mindset, what am I willing to spend? What is my budget? And I don't care what the market value is. I don't care what people are saying they're paying around here or what the apartments are going for. I come with the mindset, what am I paying? What is my budget? And I walk in and I start looking for an apartment. Well, this apartment I have here in Brooklyn, Bay Ridge, I was told the cheapest studio was $1,300, and that was 12 years ago. And at that present time, my limit was about $700 to $800. I didn't want to go over 800. So I started to go to agencies and look at apartments. I said, I'm sorry, girl, you're looking in the wrong place. You ain't going to get an apartment in this area for that price. I said, yes, I will. Something will come into your agency. Trust me, it will come in for the price I want. And you know what? The last agency I went to, she's like, you're wasting my time. Get out of here. And the phone rings. And she said, and she's talking to them and she turns white. And she gets off the phone and she's like, you're not going to believe this. An apartment just came in for $566 down the block. And it's a great building. I know it. Would you like to check it out? I've been living here for 12 years. It's fabulous. It's a great neighborhood, great apartment. And it's, I think what you're talking about is that state of you keep your mind focused on the outcome you want and you don't let anything get in the way of that.
You don't. And there's a thing that happens. It's the tall poppy syndrome. It's the crabs in the box where people pull us down. They pull us down to their level of energy, their level of thinking, their level of awareness, and their level of being. And if we allow it, we're going to stay stuck. We're going to stay stuck in everybody else's basically average, meager, crappy lives. And if we want to shift, we've got to be willing to shift into a place of absolute obsession over what it is that we want. And and then be willing to pay the price. And for you, that meant going from agency to agency, moving around. That actually resonates with me when I think about when I went into the real estate space, because what I did was what people would say is impossible. I went out and I ended up buying 150 houses in about 3 years. And the first 50 or 60, I didn't go to a bank and get any financing. Whoa. I literally went out and found people that were in situations that I could solve problems for. And I solved those problems. I took over mortgages. I created the financing. I basically just made up solutions. And people would say, well, you can't do that. And I laugh. I go, well, when you say you can't do it, you're pointing back at yourself, because I did it. Yeah. I did it 60 times before I even talked to a bank. And this is all about being obsessed. I was obsessed with making this thing happen. And if you're not obsessed, you're going to get knocked down. You're going to say, maybe this just won't work. Well, no, it's you not working it. You got to be willing to go out there and pay the dang price.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what it comes down to. I think with anything, building your financial portfolio, your new business, or even growing in a financial corporate job, perhaps, or whatever it is, that you're willing to put in the effort behind it. And I think that's the danger of something like, that you were just talking about, what was that called? That movie.
Oh, The Secret?
The Secret. That it gives you this promise of everything's going to happen, but you didn't put any effort in it. I mean, when in life, even a plant growing without any water, does you get a result? You have to be putting the effort or putting the forth, to get the results.
This is the same thing as you're cold. It's winter and you're in the woods or your house or whatever, and you look at a potbelly stove and you say, as soon as you give me heat, I will give you wood. That is not how it works. You got to put the freaking wood in there first, and you do the work, and then it produces heat. But we have this mentality that once I get this thing, then I'll do the thing. Once I make $1 million, then I'll give 10%. I'll give 100,000 away. You're not going to do that because you're not even giving $5 out of your 50 that you just made. So don't think and don't tell anybody and say these lies that you're going to change when the number gets bigger. No, you're just going to be more of the same stingy Scrooge that you already are. So you got to start opening up early and have a completely different mindset. This entitlement, especially, unfortunately, the whole trophy, everybody gets a participation trophy, millennial generation kind of nonsense. Yeah. That's not how the real world works. I mean, you get to be willing to get beat up and have scars and bleed a little bit and go out there, and that's how life is. It is not all unicorns, puppy dogs, and lollipops.
I love that you say that, because I remember in high school, this is when I think the whole idea of everyone should get a reward and make everyone feel gushy and yummy inside. I was in a chorus opera thing, and they gave me an award for showing up and trying my hardest. And I felt like dirty going up to get the award, because I'm like, I didn't earn it. I'm not the best singer. I'm not the best. I'm not talented. I shouldn't be getting any award. Yeah, and I think that when you do this to kids, they know deep down that they shouldn't be getting something that they didn't earn.
I think there's a problem though, because I think there's a lot of neuroplasticity, which is the rewiring of the brain, where a lot of people are growing up with this whole participation is enough type of mentality, and then they get out in the world. And especially, I've had a lot of these types of folks come to me and want to work for me, and they'll say, well, I have this degree and therefore I'm entitled to $80,000 a year. And I go, you have no practical skills that can make this business successful. You're worth about $9 an hour to basically run errands, because you don't have any skills. And I don't really care what your piece of paper says. Congratulations, you survived a bunch of keggers. I mean, whoop-de-doo. You don't have anything that's going to actually be valuable in the real world. So maybe you should go back to academia and be a professor. That'd be valuable.
Yeah. Now, where do you think this whole entitlement thing came from? Because it feels like it's become very rampant, not just with, people just coming out of college, but just in, I'm a consultant. So I've gone to a lot of businesses, and they said, oh, help us with, growing our numbers, where cash flow is an issue. And I talk first to their employees, and a lot of them feel like, well, I've been here 20 years. I deserve more money. They're not doing any extra work. They're not adding any more value, but somehow they think where does that come from, that mindset?
It's a selfish mentality. There is an interesting thing that happens as people cycle through generations, where I've watched this, and you've probably seen this too, where one person is an entrepreneur. They go out there and they basically get bloody and muddy in the real world, and then they have kids, and they experience so much pain. They want their kids to have an easier time, so they coddle them. And they don't allow them to actually bleed in the streets at all. They say, well, I want to help you get a really great education, and then I want you to have a safe job. And they completely screw them up with this lack of actually going out there and stubbing their toes. And so it bounces back and forth between generations. And I think that's one of the problems. There were a lot of people that were in a certain generation that was raising these millennials. I think there was a different mindset where they, maybe it was part of the Cold War, the struggle, or who knows, I don't know what it was, but I do know that there's a mass mindset that has been all about coddling. And we've got these boomerang kids now that are coming back and moving back in with their parents. And I'm amazed at how many parents are excited about this idea. I'm like, what is wrong with you? You are screwing your kid up. You're not giving them a chance to go out there and grow and get the thick skin and build the muscle. You're going to keep your kids weak and stupid.
Yeah. And then one day, sadly, you will pass on. It happened recently last year to my mom, and it was sad. And my sister lived with her, God bless her, helped take care of my mom as she was going through the process of dying. But she often didn't have to take care of a lot of the everyday resources because my mom took care of that. And then when my mom died, she felt very overwhelmed, and God bless her, she's raised up and taken the reins and really gone forward. But I really think parents think they're doing a service to their kids, but actually letting them fall a little bit and bloody up actually makes them a lot stronger than, just picking up the pieces every time and saying, I'll just clean you up.
Yeah, if you have a kid right now, your job is to create a very strong adult that you can kick out of your house when they're 18, and you fill the room with a weight set or something. It's like a pool. Fill it with sand. Make sure it's not able to be used so that they don't freaking come back. Say, look, you can sleep on the couch for like 2 nights, and then you're getting back out of here. But if you make it easy, you're going to create weak children. You're going to create a weak legacy, and it's. I mean, are you really going to be proud of that? No, but of course you don't want to see your kids hurt. But the truth is, your job is to help them understand that pain in learning is part of the growth process, and that's how you're successful and fulfilled. And if you don't have that, you're going to end up being scared, and that's how you're going to end up in retirement, in your life, in every way. And that's how a lot of people that come to me have really. That's where they've gone into a place of being really afraid. Even when they have millions of dollars in the bank and they're 50 years old, they go, "We're scared to death. We're going to lose it." So what happened? They never built the confidence. They never got kicked out into the street and were forced to do something to build that muscle.
Now talking to everyone, because not everyone listening in is a business owner, but a lot of them are, and some of them are maybe working in a corporate job. Where do you begin to build this awareness where you can see where are you at today, both financially and every part of your life, and to start to move forward in a positive way? Where do they begin?
There's 4 C's. I mean, I can tell you who you are based on your cash, your credit cards, and your calendar. Whoa. And I mean, those 3 things will tell me everything I need to know about you. They'll tell me what your values are. They'll tell me whether you have ethics. They'll tell me whether you have a dual life, 2 lives. And ultimately, we can figure out what's real about you. What's the truth? And that's the thing that we have to ask. And it's something that I did after I lost $20 million. I spent 2 years asking one question, literally with a therapist every single week. What is true? And went deep into this thing. And that's what we do. We start with what's true. And then once we figure out what's true about you now, we figure out the trajectory of where you're going based on what you've been doing. And then we say, do you want to be there down the road? And people are going to say no. So we switch. It's like the consulting world. You go, well, you need to switch 6 degrees this way. And once you do that, then we say, okay, well, if you're going to switch, I can't just give you $40 million with the Powerball. That is not going to do anything because you're going to snap back. The only way to do this, it's like a yo-yo diet. You've got to totally change your fundamental beliefs and your foundation, and that's called your confidence muscle. So we build that up through exercises and doing things to where you go, oh, this is not some mythical process of creating wealth or freedom. It is actually a process of building this confidence muscle. And once we do that, then it doesn't matter whether you have cash or cash flow because you can always create it. And that is the freedom that everybody really wants. Yes.
I was talking to my partner about that. People think they want the money, but they don't want the money. Because if you just got the big lotto, 400 million or whatever, you'd probably spend it faster than you can think. And you'd be more debt than when you started. But if you know how to build the income and the cash when you need it, how you want it in any market, then now you're free, because it doesn't matter what happened, what boss you might have worked for in the past, or what happens to this business. You can always build a new one.
Yeah, and to something you said earlier, a really great point. People come into their work if you're working for someone, or if you have your own business, but especially if you're working and you say, "Well, I want more money." Yeah. Okay, great. You know what? Go create 3 times as much as you want in value for the business, and it is an easy yes for your boss. That's all it takes. And if your boss says no, I guarantee you there's somebody next door that's going to hire you in a heartbeat for more money. But it's a choice. You've got to show up and create more value. When I've had people that go on cruise control or they say, I just want the money, I say, congratulations, I'm going to help you be successful somewhere else immediately.
I love it. But you also mentioned, very interestingly, building the muscle of confidence. Now, what does that look like? How do you even begin to build someone's confidence muscle?
Well, typically when we're talking about money, we don't have any skill sets around it. We don't even know what's going on. So the first thing is the muscle of repetitive awareness, where we're going to be seeing our numbers. And for most people, that means having somebody else doing their numbers and presenting them, because it's exhausting. After you were talking about your day and when you do interviews and things. And ultimately, most of us are pretty worn out with whatever we're doing during the day. And the last thing we want to do is a bunch of bookkeeping. So the first thing is having somebody doing that. And it really doesn't cost that much money. So we get in the habit of these things and we build these habitual behaviors that are going to give us the awareness. They're going to give us the truth. And once we have that, then we say, okay, well, you know what the truth is? I actually have $200 extra every month, and I've got 7 hours that's just kind of being killed or wasted. So what are we going to do? We start filling it with things that are going to start building the muscle. It's the same thing as going to a gym. It's going out and doing things, whether it's looking at real estate or it's going and buying an ounce of silver. It's these things that will create an awareness around the real financial world versus this Wall Street world that has most people completely disconnected from any type of control.
Yeah. I just talked to someone yesterday at one of the consulting gigs I work at, and she was like, oh, well, yeah, I have a 401k, but I don't know what any of it does or any of the stock. So basically, she hands over her money every month or week or whatever and has no idea how it's being invested, what it's doing for her, if it's even working at all. And it must feel disempowering to feel that you don't know if this money is working for you. And if my boss just feels like it one day, or if the business does badly, I'm just out of a job. So you're dependent on all of that one source of everything that you need to live, food and otherwise, from that one place.
There's a reason that the company that I started is called Total Control Financial, because ultimately what you just described, people's jobs, you have a degree of ability to create and control in your job by working and producing more value by a multiple of what you're getting paid. That puts you in a place where you're the last person that gets fired. And if you do, you're going to bounce really well into the next thing. But the truth is, if you throw your money at a financial advisor or a life insurance policy or all these things that people do, and they think they're smart because they're told by some salesperson, this is a really smart, savvy thing to do. If you do this, you'll have all this money and you can borrow from it. Give me a break. You know who that's going to make rich? The life insurance company, the Wall Street broker. John Bogle, the founder of Vanguard. Everybody's heard of Vanguard, the biggest fund. Yeah. John Bogle has a great quote. It's on our website. It says that there's something wrong when a system, which is Wall Street, ends up with 80% of the profits with none of the risk, and the consumer ends up with 20% of the profits and all of the risk. How does that actually serve you or do anything for you other than create a very, very lame return, and it makes you old and broke? I mean, it's the worst thing ever that we've been conned into doing, and we're totally out of control and out of touch with reality about us staying broke.
And it's interesting, not only were we talking earlier about entitlement, but I think now generations forward and backward are being taught this idea that don't worry, give it to us. We'll take care of everything. It's all good. And so along with your money and everything else, people are just not dealing with it. When it comes to tax time, I'll just go to H&R Block. When it comes to dealing with my house, I'll just give it to the real estate lady and not even think about how they're dealing with doing the clothes and all that. And so you're taking your power in all these places, giving it to other people. And I think sometimes it's helpful to get the things off your plate, but to do it, as you said, with awareness that this is the expert, they're going to deal with it, but it's not like I'm going blind.
That's it. I mean, there's a level of understanding, and then there's the smart decision to not do everything yourself. I mean, I one of my best friends in the world sometimes does some things, and I look at him and I go, "Why are you doing that?" And for him, he wants to be in control of everything. And I say, "Well, yeah, but you know what? You're literally the smartest person I've ever met in the entire world. I didn't meet Stephen Hawking. He would be smarter than my friend, but I mean, this guy's level of intellect is amazing." And I sometimes just want to slap him and go, stop doing these things and have somebody else do them. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. It's like when I was buying real estate and I kept buying more and I was making more and more millions. I could, but should I? No, that I needed to do something else because that yes, I can created I almost died event. And so we have to ask ourselves, what should we be doing? And simply understanding how to do it is a great place to be when you start handing things off.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned something else earlier, which I thought was interesting. And I've heard this from another business coach. And he had said, really look at your calendar. And he had mentioned your bank account, but your calendar. And the reason for that, he said a lot of people put 7 hours of TV watching a week. And now they don't usually put it in their calendar. But if you actually break down, as you were saying, and you sit down and write it out, what am I doing with my time? And you spend 7 hours a week in front of the telly, what are you doing to your brain? It's becoming mush for 7 hours of that week, if not more. And the same goes with the rest of your time you're spending or with your money. My biggest thing is coffee outside, but other people just by being little doodads. I knew one gal, it's funny, Damion, we would go out to lunch and she would always say, I'm just going to drop here and get a little something at Dwayne Reed. Walk it up with $100 worth of stuff. I'm like, did you need $100 worth of stuff from Dwayne Reed?
People are unconscious completely, and this is one of the most valuable things about having a coach of some sort. And there's a coach at whatever level you are, whether you make $50,000 a year or you make $5 million a year. There is a coach that will see your stuff, call you out on it, and put you in a place of awareness in a way that you will never do on your own. Without a doubt, there's a reason that the world-class Olympians, that until he decided to sleep with half of Las Vegas, Tiger Woods had a coach that was keeping him in line. And he was the greatest golfer in the world. He has a coach. So why wouldn't everybody that wants to be great in their life have a coach? Yeah. It just doesn't make any sense to think that you're going to be good enough to do on your own. I have a coach, and I'm pretty smart. I'm pretty good, but I can't see myself swing. And we need to be able to see ourselves swing. We need to see what we're actually doing. We need to see those 7 hours of TV and the amount of screen time. I mean, I don't think people are aware of how many hours. It's not 7 hours a week. It's like 7 hours a day minimum that people are in front of a screen. Yeah. Minimum.
You're right, because I'm on the train. I see people with their cell phones looking down, watching more TV. I'm like, oh my gosh, the cell phones are causing more TV. I can't believe they need more TV.
It's nonstop. It's a Facebook feed that gives us a highlight reel that we compare our lives to. And then we go watch television and we watch dramas and comedy and the news, which scrambles our brain and makes us think that the sky is falling. So we turn it into Chicken Little. What are we doing? I mean, this is literally brain damage.
It is. It's completely lunacy. But we also have here, you also wrote a wonderful book that I'd love for you to share with people, Total Control Financial Guide, the QRP. I think that stands for Qualified Retirement Plan.
Yes, and here's what's funny. If you're listening right now and you're going, what the heck is a QRP, Qualified Retirement Plan?
That's what I first thought.
Like, no, well, let me tell you, the reason you haven't heard about it is because Wall Street would like you to stay in a bunch of mutual funds, and they would like you to stay in your 401k, and the life insurance companies would like you to have a whole lot of their bank on yourself and infinite banking policies. They don't want you to know about the QRP, because here's what the QRP is. It is your retirement money in a checkbook that you control, that you invest in how you want to. You don't have anybody else calling the shots. You're literally in charge. You're in total control. And honestly, it's probably a terrifying thought to a lot of people, because they go, I'm too stupid. And I don't want to be responsible for my money. Yeah, you're going to be old and broke then, because your strategy is hope. You're literally smoking hopium, thinking that it's all going to work out. Like, this is the dumbest strategy on earth with your money. And so the QRP allows you to take your 401k, your IRA, your money, and put it into a tax vehicle where, if you choose, you could pay no taxes as it's growing and when you pull it out. So here's why that's important. The biggest expense you're ever going to have in your life is taxes. I know. So wouldn't it be kind of nice to take that down to zero? I mean, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. It's interesting. I hear so many people say, oh, well, these rich never pay any taxes, la, la, la. They're using vehicles in a smart way. They have an accountant for their accountant and their accountant, and they measure different ways. How can we not pay as little tax, or how can we pay as little taxes as possible? And hey, I say to them, you would do it too if you could, but you just send it off the H&R Block, have them work on an online screen where they just fill in the blanks, and bam, you'll get this much back. But you're not looking at all the ways that you could actually gain and get more money back.
Well, it's true, and here's something that we hear a lot. We hear that the rich use a bunch of loopholes, and it's not true. What they're using is incentives. The entire tax code basically is a whole bunch of ways for the government to incentivize you to do certain things, whether it's doing real estate things or businesses, having employees. And guess who has the option of using the same code? You're listening to this. You're working at a job, but you don't really get to do anything because the code isn't written for employees. The Tax Cut Act that was just put into law by Trump and this Congress is all about real estate investors and business owners. If you're just working a job and you're not willing to become financially literate, it's going to get harder for you. You're going to make less money unless you start shifting. And if you decide to start taking advantage of these incentives by doing something that the government wants you to do to help the economy, oh my gosh, you might actually pay no taxes. That's totally cool, because that code is available for you too. It's not just for the rich. You could become one of them.
Yeah. And I love that. And in this country, more than anywhere in the world, we have the most millionaires and billionaires, and it's not because they decided to wake up one day and be greedy. We've also been sold this crazy myth in this country, probably by the people who want to keep us poor, that to be rich means you're greedy. And they're not equated together. No, you deciding to be financially literate and taking risk and doing things that others are not comfortable doing. Because honestly, I mean, come on, we talked before the interview, Damion. There were a lot of things you did that were not comfortable. You almost killed yourself building your business.
Yeah, here's something that I really want you to hear. If you're not rich and you're working and you've got a paycheck, you're greedy. And because you're not creating something, you're not out there. I doubt very much that you're out there living your potential, and you're out there creating jobs, that you're creating real estate, you're creating housing, you're doing things. And it doesn't mean your job isn't important. Maybe you're a doctor or a nurse, or maybe you're a lawyer. I don't know how important that is, but you're doing something. But the point is, being poor is the greediest thing you can do. Yeah. You don't help anybody by being poor. It is a bad idea. So the rich that are out there doing things, that are maintaining their wealth and growing their wealth, that is incredibly generous, because they're creating jobs, because they're creating affluence and abundance. And so, think about that. If you're just thinking about how much you can get, then you're really the greedy problem. Yeah. That's not the rich.
Yeah. And I've had conversations with friends and people, because now as I've built my business, I've taken risks, I've had uncomfortable times, and I'm still growing. And people started to see me, people I've known all my life, oh, you've changed and you're not the same person. I'm like, I am the same person. It's just now I'm a person who's taking risks, whereas before I was a person who was not present, as you said, and didn't take risks. I thought it was safer to be fearful and let a job or a employee take care of my life for me.
Let's talk about risk, because when we think about being an employee, and if you've got a job right now, you've got one source of income. Mm-hmm. How much more risky could it be to have one stream of income? When you're doing consulting and you have a bunch of different people companies that you're working for, you've got all these different streams. Mm-hmm. When you've got a rental house, you've got another employer. It's called the house, and it actually works for you, which actually, it's not really an employer, it's kind of an employee. Yeah. You've got these different streams that are paying you, and that there's this weird primal thing that we've got where we think that if we take a risk, we're literally going to be eaten by a wild animal. And it's a primal instinct. And I mean, I can tell you that this is a real thing that could happen. I grew up in Alaska, and if going out the front door, there were literally bears, and you could be eaten. So it's possible. And if you go to Africa, there are tigers and there are rhinos and things. It could happen. If you don't live in Alaska or Africa, you're not going to be eaten by your mistakes. There's nothing in the bushes that's going to jump out there and chomp you. So what are you really afraid of? You're afraid of the judgment of doing something that doesn't work. Yeah. Okay, so are you really, is your self-esteem that beat up? Well, go smack your parents and then go get to work and start building your muscle by doing things that accelerate your mistakes so that you can learn from those things. The people that get the richest are the ones that make the most mistakes the fastest. Yes. And if you're not making mistakes, you are going to be stuck the rest of your life, and you're going to wake up one day and your last day, and you're going to look back and you're going to say, crap. Yeah. Oops. I lived a quarter of my potential, and you won't be able to get it back.
Yeah. And you can't, that's the one thing you can't get back, and that people trade so easily, and that's time. And it's sad to me, because you're sitting here thinking, well, look at them and but instead stop looking at others and just think, what could I do to make my life better? Even starting where I'm at, even if it's in a dead end job that I don't like, what could I be doing when I get home to grow myself as a human being, to become more aware, as you talked about in the beginning, with all parts of my life that can move me in a direction that is beneficial for me going forward.
Yeah. And the first thing you got to do is start telling the truth. Stop lying to yourself. I mean, if you are in financial bondage, it's because you put your own self there. It's nobody else did it to you. And don't stop blaming your parents or your job or the economy or anything else. It is literally your damn fault wherever you are in your life. And if you think you're really stuck, ask yourself, okay, would I trade places? When Nelson Mandela was alive, he was in prison for how many years? How many decades was he sitting there? Are you in prison? I mean, if you're listening to this podcast in prison, hopefully eventually you'll be able to get out, but you're probably not in prison, but you've put yourself in a financial prison. Yeah. And you can choose when you want to leave that thing by becoming aware and spending time educating yourselves and finding ways to make mistakes. And forget about this idea that mistake is death. No mistakes. That's death.
Yeah. And what I love that you mentioned when you talk about mistakes, I've heard people say about people going into bankruptcy. Oh, well, they had a bunch of bankruptcies. They're a failure. I said, well, if you can take yourself out of bankruptcy and then rebuild and become greater than before, that's not failure, my friend. That's what every great person and great business and great invention has done. The light bulb, what was it? 10,000 failed before they got the right one. I mean, there's a lot of failure before you hit success.
When Thomas Edison had all his light bulbs, people said, "You failed 10,000 times." He goes, "No, I found 10,000 ways that this doesn't work." and I was testing him, and that's how I got to that one that did work. I mean, at one point, and most people don't know this because all we do is we hear this negative stuff about our current president. And I think it's funny because at one point he was $990 million in debt. And regardless of what you think of this person, to take that and by any way to calculate his wealth, whether it's his, which is a lot higher than what people generally will say is a real value.
Yes.
But he went from negative 990 million to multiple billions. So wherever you are, I promise you're not that bad. It's not 990 million. I mean, when I was down, I was negative 5 million. That is a lot of money for pretty much everybody. If you're listening, it's probably a lot of money. It was a lot of money to me too. And I was able to come back and rebuild. And what's fascinating is that I rebuilt from a different perspective, and it was based on values. It was based on why I was doing it. It wasn't just for more money. And if you're fixated on just the money, you're screwed. You have to shift to a focus on, why do I want this? It's not because you want these little like green pieces of paper with dead people on them. Like, what is it for? Yeah. And why are you spending all this time doing what you're doing? Are you just doing a job so that you can have money, so you can have a nice weekend, so that you can have a heart attack on Monday for the job that you hate? I mean, what are you focused on, and why are you doing it? Is it really about contribution, or is it about your ego being fulfilled because of shiny objects in a big house that you want to buy?
Yes. And I would challenge anyone who says that, someone who just makes a lot of money, it's all about the money, because anyone truly successful, it's not about the money. The true essence behind it that pushes them, the drive, it's got to be, and I tell you, got to be beyond money, because no one reaches success with just money as the target. It's got to be this thing that's propelling you, like, I want to be the best in this, or I want to, I just love dancing, or whatever it is, but it's got to be something deeper than just cash.
And I agree with you. I think there's something that can be said for the question, would you do your job for free? And it's not that you're going to do your job for free or the work you do. The question is, do you love it enough? If you love it enough, there is this really fascinating thing, because if you're doing something that you're getting paid for and you say, well, I would totally do it for free, I love it that much, there's going to be an energy that you bring to that work that's going to push you into the top of that field. And when you're in the top of any field, you're going to be paid more than you can spend. You're going to be paid more than you'll ever need. And it's going to feel like playtime all the time. So that's the mental shift. It's doing something that you really care about. And you can, this is going to sound totally psychotic, but there are times I was on a trip to Orlando a few months ago, and I was presenting on the QRP. And I woke up at like 3:30 in the morning, and I was so excited about looking up tax code. So I was reading the IRS's website, and I was finding new ways and new things I could teach people. And I shared that with some of the students, and they said, are you an alien? Like, are you deranged? Like, what is wrong with you? And I said, I love this stuff so much, and I can't wait to share it and give you guys more tools and give you options to create this freedom. So, I mean, if you can get that excited about whatever you're doing, and it probably isn't the tax code at 3 a.m., but there might be something.
Yeah.
And you know what? Everything changes when you get that excited. You're no longer avoiding your thing. You're begging for the day to start so that you can get to it.
Imagine starting the day where you can't wait to get started. And it would be awesome. So everyone listening, take heed and do this. But I don't want us to leave, Damion. Show them where they can get your book and find out more about you.
Best place to go, and actually you can get a free copy of the book at Total Control Financial. There's a button that says free book, and click on it. And it's not just an ebook, it's actually a physical book that I'm going to ship out to you. And what this is going to do is it's going to give you something probably you've never heard of. It's going to give you some information that could potentially change your life completely. It's going to disrupt some major beliefs that you have around what you're supposed to do with your money and Wall Street and everything. So get a copy of the book, totalcontrolfinancial.com. Get a copy of that book right now so that you can start taking those steps towards a place where you're out of that financial bondage and you're into a place of freedom.
Absolutely. Freedom. Thank you so much, Damion. This has been such a blessing having you here today. Thank you for coming to Savvy Business Radio.
My pleasure. Thank you, Christina. I really, really appreciate it.
Savvy Business Radio broadcasts worldwide via a large podcast network, celebrating business owners, entrepreneurs, influencers, and successful individuals. Find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest. Call 732-474-7375 or email Christina@savvybusinessradio.com.